The silence in the dining room wasn't peaceful. It was the heavy, suffocating kind that comes right before a dam breaks. I looked at the legal papers spread across my mahogany table, then up at my daughter-in-law, Sienna. She wasn't smiling, but her eyes held a terrifying sort of pity. The way you look at a broken antique that's no longer worth repairing. She thought she was doing me a favor. If you enjoy stories about quiet justice and lines that shouldn't be crossed, tap the like button as we begin this journey. Just remember, while the emotions in this story are very real, the characters and events are entirely fictionalized for your entertainment. It started with a phone call that any father would be happy to receive, at least in theory. My son, Brendan, called me on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. His voice sounded tight, not squeezed by stress. He explained that the construction on their new forever home had hit a snag, a permitting issue coupled with a supply chain delay. They were looking at 3, maybe 4 months of displacement before the keys would be in their hands. Their lease was up, and extending it wasn't an option financially. I didn't hesitate. I live alone in a house that was built for a large family. It's a sturdy brick colonial that I bought 40 years ago with my late wife. It has 4 bedrooms, a finished basement, and too much silence. I told Brendan that he and Sienna were welcome to stay. I thought it would be a chance to reconnect, to fill the hallways with life again. I didn't realize that by opening my door, I was inviting a meticulously planned inspection of my entire existence. If you've ever regretted being too generous with family, you know exactly the sinking feeling that was waiting for me. Moving day was chaotic. I expected a few suitcases and maybe some essential furniture. Instead, a massive moving truck backed into my driveway, cracking the edge of the asphalt I'd been meaning to patch. Sienna directed the movers with the precision of a drill sergeant. She walked into the foyer, not with a greeting, but with a critical scan of the environment. She bypassed a hug and went straight to inspecting the dust on the banister. "It smells like old paper in here, Walter," she said, wrinkling her nose. She didn't say Dad or Walter, thanks for having us. Just a critique of the atmosphere. I brushed it off. I told myself she was stressed. Moving is hard on everyone. Then I helped carry in boxes labeled Sienna's wardrobe on summer and Sienna's wardrobe winter, wondering where exactly they thought all this was going to fit. My house is comfortable, but it isn't a warehouse. That first night, as boxes walled off my living room, I felt the first tremor of my sanctuary collapsing. The first week established a routine that felt less like guests visiting and more like a hostile takeover. I am a creature of habit. I wake up at 6, drink black coffee, and read the financial news in physical newspapers. I don't like tablets. I like the feel of newsprint. On Thursday morning, I came down to find my newspapers in the recycling bin. Sienna was at the counter, making a green smoothie with a blender that sounded like a jet engine. "I tossed those papers," she said over the noise. "They clutter up the island. Well, plus, think of the trees, Walter. You can read everything on your phone." She offered me a glass of green sludge. "Also, Brendan and I are going to handle the grocery shopping from now on. We noticed your fridge is full of, well, cheap stuff. Processed meats, generic brands. We want to help you eat like someone of your status, or at least what your status should be." It was a backhanded comment wrapped in a smile. She assumed I bought generic because I had to, not because I saw no point in paying for a label. The assumptions about my finances began to bleed into every conversation. I drive a 12-year-old truck. It runs perfectly. I change the oil myself, and I keep the engine spotless. The paint is faded, and there is a dent in the bumper from a parking lot mishap years ago. To me, it's reliable transportation. To Sienna, it was a public embarrassment. One afternoon, I was washing the truck in the driveway. Sienna pulled up in her least luxury SUV. She stepped out, adjusting her designer sunglasses. "Walter," she sighed, walking over. "Brendan and I were talking. Maybe it's time to trade this in? There are programs for seniors with limited income. We could help you fill out the paperwork." I paused, sponge in hand. "The truck is fine, Sienna. I like it." She patted my arm patronizingly. "It's okay to admit things are tight. We aren't going to judge you for falling behind." She walked inside before I could correct her. She had already decided on the narrative. I was the struggling retiree, and they were the benevolent saviors. My study is the one room in the house that is strictly mine. It's lined with oak bookshelves, filled with history texts and my collection of vintage maps. It's also where I keep my desk, a heavy, chaotic surface covered in notes and ledgers. I don't trust cloud storage for everything. I keep a physical ledger of my accounts, my investments, and my properties. It's an old habit from my father. 2 weeks into their stay, I came home from a walk to find the study door ajar. I walked in to see Sienna running a finger along the spine of a leather-bound book. She jumped slightly when I cleared my throat. "Just looking for a pen," she said quickly. "This room is such a waste of square footage, Walter. It's so dark." "If you knocked out that wall," she pointed to the partition separating the study from the living room, "you'd get an open concept. It would increase the resale value immensely." I stepped between her and the desk. "I'm not selling, Sienna, and please, don't come in here without asking." She rolled her eyes. "Just trying to maximize your assets. Someone has to." The improvements started small, then escalated rapidly. I came home one day to find my curtains, heavy velvet drapes my late wife had chosen, gone. In their place were flimsy white linen sheets that let in too much light. "Brightening up the space," Sienna chirped. "It makes the room look bigger. Psychological trick for buyers." "I told you, I am not selling," I said, my voice hardening. Brendan was sitting on the couch, looking at his phone, refusing to make eye contact. "Dad, she's just trying to help," he mumbled. "The house is a bit dated." I looked at my son. He was 40 years old, yet in that moment, he looked like a teenager afraid of his girlfriend. "It's my house, Brendan, and it doesn't need to be modern. It needs to be mine." Sienna huffed. "We're just thinking about the future, Walter. Your future. You can't maintain this place forever on a fixed income. We're trying to build equity for you." The arrogance was breathtaking. The tension moved from the decor to the dinner table. Sienna began to treat me like a boarder in my own home. She would cook elaborate meals for her and Brendan, then point to a container of leftovers for me. "We're doing a keto thing," she'd say. "Ingredients are expensive, so I made you a sandwich." It wasn't about the food. I can cook for myself. It was the power play. She was controlling the resources. One evening, I brought home a bottle of scotch, a very rare, very expensive single malt I had ordered weeks ago. I set it on the counter. Sienna picked it up, inspected the label, and frowned. "Walter, did you spend grocery money on this?" she asked loudly. "This looks pricey. Is this why you haven't fixed the leak in the upstairs tap?" "Priorities, Walter." I took the bottle from her hand. "The tap is fixed. I did it this morning, and what I spend my money on is my concern." She exchanged a look with Brendan, a look that said, "He's losing it. He's spending recklessly." I realized I needed to secure my boundaries when I overheard a conversation on the patio. I was in the kitchen, the window was open, and they didn't know I was there. Sienna was on the phone, presumably with her mother. "It's worse than we thought," she whispered dramatically. "The place is falling apart. He's driving a junker. I think he's barely making property taxes. Brendan is too soft to say it, but we're going to have to intervene. If we don't, yes, the bank is going to take this house, and there goes our inheritance." I froze. It wasn't concern. It was greed masked as concern. She viewed my frugality as poverty and my house as her future asset. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about losing the capital she thought she was entitled to. I quietly closed the window. I didn't confront them yet. I needed to see how far she would go. I walked into my study, unlocked the bottom drawer, and took out the black ledger. I checked the columns. I wasn't worried about the bank. I was the bank. The contractor showed up on a Saturday morning. I hadn't called anyone. I was drinking coffee when a man in a polo shirt knocked on the door, holding a clipboard. "Here for the estimate," he said. "Kitchen demo and master bath expansion." I stepped out onto the porch. "Ah, you have the wrong house." Sienna pushed past me, wearing a robe. "No, he's here for us. Hi, I'm Sienna." She turned to me, her voice dropping to that patronizing tone again. "Walter, listen. We're going to pay for the renovation. Consider it rent. It will update the plumbing and the electrical, which I'm sure are dangerous by now. You need a safe home." I looked at the contractor, who looked uncomfortable. "There will be no demo," I said clearly. "Please leave my property." Sienna's face turned crimson. "I am trying to save you from living in a squalor," she hissed. "Why are you so stubborn and proud?" That afternoon, the atmosphere in the house was toxic. Brendan tried to play peacekeeper. He came into the living room where I was reading. "Dad, look. Sienna is just... She has high standards. She's worried. She thinks you're drowning financially and hiding it. She wants to fix the house up, so if you do need to sell, you get top dollar. She's trying to protect the family asset." "The family asset," I repeated. "Brendan, this is my home, not an asset for your portfolio." He looked down at his shoes. "We know you don't have much savings, Dad. Mom was sick for a long time. We know that drains people. Just let Sienna manage the house project. It gives her something to do, and it helps you." They had constructed an entire reality where I was destitute. I realized telling them the truth casually wouldn't work. They wouldn't believe it. They needed hard evidence. The breaking point approached when I found Sienna going through my mail. It was subtle. She had organized the pile on the counter. But the envelopes were in a different order than the postman leaves them. My bank statements, usually sealed tight, looked like the adhesive had been tampered with. I didn't say a word. I just took the mail to my study and locked the door. Inside, I called my lawyer, Graham. Graham has been my friend since college. We made our money together in commercial real estate back in the 80s. "Graham," I said, "I need you to draft a document, a revocation of any potential power of attorney, and a clear statement of estate planning." Graham laughed. "The kids moving in not going well?" "They think I'm broke, Graham, and they're measuring the drapes for my funeral." I looked at the ledger open on my desk. The numbers were black, solid, and undeniable. It was time to give a math lesson. Sienna decided to escalate matters. She invited neighbors over for drinks, neighbors I had known for 20 years. I came downstairs to find a party in full swing. Sienna was holding court, pouring wine. "Oh, we're just happy to be here for Walter," I heard her say. "It's a lot of work, taking care of an aging parent. But we couldn't let him live like this alone." My neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, looked spotting me. Walter, Sienna was just telling us how you're adjusting. I smiled, a tight, dangerous smile. I'm adjusting fine, Martha, though I am surprised to find a party in my living room. Sienna rushed over, linking her arm through mine. Her grip was tight. Now, Walter, don't get agitated. Socializing is good for the cognitive function. She was publicly painting me as senile. That was the moment the game changed. This wasn't just about the house anymore. No, it was about my reputation. The climax came 3 days later. Sienna announced a family meeting. She set the table with official-looking pads of paper and pens. She made Brendan sit on her right. I sat at the head of the table. Walter, she began, clasping her hands. We've done some calculations. The cost of running this house, heating, taxes, insurance, it's too much for a single pension. She slid a piece of paper toward me. It was a budget she had made up, based entirely on guesses. We have a solution. We're willing to take over the mortgage. We will refinance the house in our name. You can continue to live here in the in-law suite downstairs, and we will manage the finances. It relieves you of the burden. She smiled, a shark showing its teeth. It's the only way to avoid bankruptcy, Walter. Well, we know you're in trouble. I picked up the paper. It was a transfer of deed disguised as a care agreement. If I signed this, I would legally be a tenant in my own home, subject to their rules, and they would own the property. So, I said softly, you want me to sign over my house because you think I can't afford the heating bill? We know you can't, Brendan said, finally speaking up. Dad, we've seen the way you live. You don't buy anything. You drive that old truck. It's okay. We're stepping up. And if I refuse? I asked. Sienna's eyes narrowed. Then we can't stay. And when you inevitably crash and burn, we won't be able to bail you out. This is a one-time offer to save your dignity. I stood up slowly. Wait here, I said. I walked to the study. My heart was pounding, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of the reveal. I unlocked the desk. I bypassed the casual checking account book. I reached for the master ledger, the heavy black-bound book where I tracked my commercial holdings, my diverse stock portfolio, and the zero balance status of my mortgage. I also grabbed the folder from the bank I had requested the day before. A certified proof of funds. I walked back into the dining room. The room was silent. They looked at me like a stubborn child who had gone to fetch a toy. I threw the ledger onto the table. It landed with a heavy thud that rattled the water glasses. Open it, I said to Sienna. She hesitated, looking at Brendan. What is this? It's the reality you missed because you were too busy judging my truck. Open it to the page marked with the blue ribbon. Sienna flipped the book open. Her eyes scanned the columns, so confusion washed over her face. What are these properties? The 3 apartment complexes downtown, I said calmly, the warehouse district on the east side, and the agricultural land in the next county. Mortgages? Brendan asked, leaning in. Paid in full, I replied. Look at the bottom line, Sienna. Read the total net worth aloud. Sienna stared at the number. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. It was a number with 7 figures, and the first digit wasn't a 1. This can't be real, she whispered. You use coupons at the grocery store. I use coupons because I value money, I said. I don't waste it on leased cars and posturing. I pulled the bank statement from the folder and slid it over the deed transfer document she had prepared. This is my current liquidity. As you can see, I could buy this neighborhood if I chose to. I am not drowning, Sienna. I am anchored. Brendan looked at the ledger, then at me. He turned pale. He realized instantly how badly he had miscalculated. "Dad, we didn't know." "You didn't ask," I corrected him. "You assumed, you judged, and you plotted. This document," I picked up their transfer agreement, "is an insult. It assumes I am incompetent. It tries to trick me out of my home." I ripped the paper in half. The sound was incredibly satisfying. "Walter, we were just trying to be practical," Sienna stammered, her voice an octave higher than usual. "We were worried. You can't blame us for caring." "You weren't caring," I said, my voice low and steady. "You were counting. There is a difference." I looked at Brendan. "I welcomed you into my home. In return, yet you treated me like a burden and tried to evict me from my own life. That ends now." "I want you out," I said. "Dad, the house isn't ready," Brendan protested. "We have nowhere to go." "You have plenty of places to go," I gestured to the ledger. "With the money you save by not supporting me, you can rent a hotel. Or maybe you can stay with Sienna's parents. But you cannot stay here." Sienna stood up, her face blotchy with anger and humiliation. "You're kicking us out? After we tried to help you?" "You tried to rob me," I said. "Pack your things. You have until tomorrow morning. The movers you hired, call them back." The departure was quiet. There were no more critiques of my drapes or my truck. Sienna refused to look at me as she dragged her suitcases to the car. Brendan tried to say goodbye, to mumble an apology, but I just nodded. And I didn't need his apology. I needed my peace. Once they were gone, I walked into the kitchen. It was silent. I took the green smoothie blender off the counter and put it in a box for donation. I went to the fridge, threw out the kale, and took out a steak. I cooked it exactly how I liked it. Then, I went to my study, sat at my desk, and opened my newspaper. The house was big, yes. It was old, yes. But it was mine. And for the first time in months, the air was clear. Sometimes people mistake silence for weakness and frugality for poverty. It's a dangerous mistake to make. If you enjoyed seeing the truth come to light, please subscribe to the channel for more stories about justice and family secrets. And I'm curious, would you have shown them the ledger or just kicked them out without explanation? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.